What's up, Packers fans? Welcome back to Carry the G in MKE. I'm Aaron Nagler, joined as always by Camille Davis, coming to us from Milwaukee. I'm in New York City. Merry Christmas. Happy Boxing Day. Camille, how was your holiday?
It was good. It was good. The family time was good. This was my first holiday where my mom retired from cooking, right?
Oh,
So this
boy.
was on me
That's
and
a
my cousin.
monumental moment. Oh,
I
my
know. It was
goodness.
on us to host and cook all of the Christmas food, and it was a hit. So I'm a
There you
winner.
go.
I'm a
There
winner.
you go. Unlike what Joe Barry was cooking up. See the segue? It just you
Right
put it
there.
there, and I
Right
just got to pick it up. Well, you know what? I don't want to start with Joe Barry. Camille, can I admit something here?
Go ahead.
I have been pretty vocal. I don't want to say strident about it, but I'm pretty vocal about how unhappy I am with Joe Barry, and I think I've been out in front of that for much of his tenure in Green Bay. I feel sorry for the man, given what I've seen on social media over the last 48 hours. Like the Joe Barry burning furnace of hate from Packers fans. It's like, it's Christmas. Can we just chill? Like, I understand they almost lost the game. I understand they were up 30-16, ended up having to win 33-30. I get all this. I understand Bryce Young looked like the second coming of whoever in that second half when he's looked like garbage the rest of the season. This is what Joe Barry does. I understand all this, but it's like, can we just chill? We all know Matt's not going to fire him, right? If he was going to fire him, it would have happened after that Buccaneers game. Nothing's changed. Nothing's going to change until hopefully this offseason. Man, the Joe Barry just constant 24-hour slander, hate, what have you. I got to say, it's a bit much. I
It's a
think it's a bit
lot.
much.
It's a lot. I feel like saying a bit much is nice. It's a lot. And it's
It's a
one of
bit
those
much.
things.
I
It's a
don't know.
lot. It's a lot. And again,
Yeah. Yeah.
understand. We get it.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Barry has not been doing well, and football is a performance-based thing. Like, hey, what are your results telling us? Because that is what we are judging you off of. People aren't thinking about the fact, like, hey, this is a nice man who has a family and this and this and this and that. That piece is out. We're focused
Well,
on
way out the window. Yeah.
on football. And like you said, if he wasn't let go after that Buccaneers game, like it's not going to happen. After Matt came out and said, like, rest of the plan is the rest of the season, Joe Barry is going to be our guy, helming the defense, coordinating the efforts. At that point, it's like you got to accept that the rest of this season is going to be on the Joe Barry bus, and we got to just get on board and hope that when this season comes
Hope
to
and
a close,
pray.
when it comes to a close, we get a new bus driver for this particular ride.
That's exactly right. That is exactly correct. But I do we'll get to the defense in a bit because God knows there's plenty to talk about.
Yes,
But I want to start on the offensive side of the ball and say welcome back, Aaron Jones. It's interesting and exciting and tons of fun when you get this kind of output because essentially Aaron Jones is on the field. I mean, it's no mistake that their offense looked about as efficient and explosive as it's looked since week 1
Yep.
when he was fully available, right? It's just night and day when he is fully involved in the game plan. And look, there's still some times I get frustrated when he's not out there for stretches or what have you. But for the most part, look, you get Aaron Jones involved heavily in the game plan, good things happen.
It seems like a formula that the Packers should have been leaning on, not even just this season. And we know he's had the health things this season, but
Right.
even last year, where it's like, hey, Aaron Jones is probably our best offensive weapon here. We should be riding him a little bit more. And we didn't see that last year. Haven't seen it as much this year. Again, more so because of the injuries through anything else. But this was another game, too, where you see Aaron Jones get off to a hot start and then he gets like 2 touches in the second quarter. And you're like, wait, what? Why are
What
we
is happening? Right.
yeah, like, why are we making this more difficult than we need to at this point? Again, I'm not privy to the fact if he was on any type of they said he was free to do what,
They said he
have a
was
full
open,
workout.
right?
They said he was
Yeah.
free. So I expected to continue to see a lot of Aaron Jones in that second quarter. We didn't, but the Packers were still able to build up a lead. But just to talk about Aaron Jones for a second here, because I think that he needs this credit because I think a lot of people are looking ahead already to next year and saying, like, hey, he's probably not going to be back. He's going to be a cap casualty. But he showed in this game like he has value. Like, even if you think the Packers do need to get another running back, which I wouldn't disagree with, would love for them to draft somebody in this upcoming draft. But if there's a way to keep Jones on the roster while you draft somebody as well, like I would love to see that dynamic because Aaron Jones is just so shifty, the way he's able to cut, the speed. Like he is a threat unlike any other running back that we have on this roster.
Totally agree. And to your point, You don't have to spend like premier draft capital to
Right.
find that successor, so to speak, right? I mean, Aaron Jones himself is a day 3 pick. They've had success finding guys later, and I don't think Emmanuel Wilson is out of the picture yet either.
Hmm.
As far as the excitement we saw from Wilson this preseason, obviously it really sucks the timing of his injury going down right when he's about to get his opportunity because Jones had gone down. But yeah, to your point, Jones, certainly the conversation you would think heading into the offseason will be about probably something similar to what they did this past
Hmm.
offseason as far as getting some kind of compromise around his cap number, which think it right now is set to be about 12 million or so. That's, not insane, but still pretty significant, especially at the running back position, especially for an older player.
Right.
I hope they can find a way to keep him around. And I don't think that's a foregone conclusion. I don't think there's like a world where you can say either definitively, yes, they have to or will bring him back, or no, they absolutely should cut bait. I think it's a real conversation. And I think his performance in this game against the Panthers really underlines how effective and important he can be when he's on the field. It's funny, though, when you talk about like the frustrations of not seeing in the second quarter, I feel those frustrations in the moment. There's zero doubt about it. Afterwards, I can step back and say, look, he's missed how much time this season.
Right.
You want to be sure that he's available for these last couple games. Hopefully, maybe if there's some bit of luck involved, they get to the playoffs, want him available for that game, maybe games, who knows? So I understand wanting to be judicious with him. But man, it gets really frustrating when you turn on that 49ers game last night and you watch Christian McCaffrey involved on every single drive. It's like, yeah, thank you. You have a superstar running back. Maybe
Use them.
use him on every drive. Like that's what blows me. And it's not like McCaffrey hasn't been injured. Like he's missed
Right.
large chunks of his career due to injury. So that's where I'm like, at some point, you just got to let these guys play football. And if Aaron Jones is truly good to go, like, let's use him. That's the frustration for me. It's like because you see how dynamic he is and what a difference maker he is to this offense when he's on the field.
It just looks so different because I think we talked about it a few weeks ago saying like, hey, I would love for the Packers to get like some real speed in that running back position. And
Right.
then you see Jones come back in and you're like, oh,
He's got
like,
some burst. That 40-yarder up the right side.
oh
It's
my,
like
longest play of the
still got
season, wasn't it, from
something.
scrimmage?
Yeah, still got something there.
And I think he still has more to give. I mean, he only played, what, 9
Agreed.
games so far this season, and we understand the injury history, but CMC is a really interesting comp. Not to say, like, they're one for one on the talent and what they do on the field, but one for one in the fact that these are 2 running backs who offenses can be ran through, who have had some injury problems before in the past. So
Right.
I love you pointing out the fact of how the 49ers continue to use CMC, and they really do let him run all over the place, get him involved in the passing game, the run, like just getting the ball into your best offensive weapon's hands tends to work out pretty well. And with Green Bay and Aaron Jones, like I would love to. I've been saying this for like a year and a half. This is not new. This is
Right.
we want the ball in Aaron Jones' hands a bit more. And I thought with this season, with Love coming in, we would see that the team lean more on that running game. But unfortunately, we had the injuries and whatnot, and we had to lean on AJ Dillon a bit more, who started off slow but had started to play well. It's just the fact that AJ Dillon isn't Aaron Jones, and there's no
Yeah.
problem with that. It's just the reality of their different skill sets.
You mentioned Jordan Love, and I thought what was great going back and watching the game, it's something that I guess I I did understand. I think we mentioned it on Watch Party actually, like the fact that he did as well as he did in this game without so many of his weapons I mean, you like going into that game without Watson, right? Reed is down with a toe injury. Musgrave's been out. He practiced last week, but he wasn't up for the game. And then you lose Dontavian Wicks at halftime, and you still go up 30-16, throw into like the Bo Meltons of the world. I mean, that is a impressive performance from Jordan Love. And you talk about a guy who elevates everyone around him, what you're looking for at the quarterback position. I think you saw exactly that from Jordan Love. And look, the presence of Aaron Jones certainly absolutely helps. Certainly propelled this offense forward, flowing through Aaron Jones as an offensive weapon. No question about it. But there were so many times where Jordan Love just made a play regardless of who
Yeah.
he's throwing to, whether it's Malik Heath, whether it's Bo Melton, didn't matter. He's going to get you into most likely the right play and put the ball where it's supposed to go.
equal opportunity offense here. Like
Yeah, right.
Jordan Love did what he had to do, and we've been seeing the growth of Jordan Love throughout the season, which again, coming into the year, I was like, hey, I just want to know if we have a starting quarterback on our roster. I want to know if Jordan Love can do it. And again, he's put more on tape where I'm like, I am very confident about what his floor is at this point, where I'm like, I think we got some room to grow with him. And that's what's exciting about him. Came in the game without Watson, without Reed. We knew he didn't have Musgrave. As you mentioned, lost Wicks. Bo Melton out here just doing the dang thing.
The Bo Melton
Romeo
game.
Dobbs.
I just wanted to get Bo Melton in the end zone so we could call it the Bo Melton game. Like if he had gotten a touchdown, then it would have been it would officially been the Bo Melton game. But came up just short of that, but definitely contributions from Melton.
But Dobbs came through, big catch
Mhm.
down the stretch there as well. Like Jordan
Big
Love
time.
finished the game with a pass rating over 100. And I went back and take a look because over the last 6 weeks, which is like the stretch of Jordan Love where you're like, okay, we're really cooking with grease right now. Over the last 6 weeks, 14 touchdowns, 1 interception. The first 10 games, he had 16 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. So you're looking at just like, okay, what are we building on and how are we growing? And Jordan Love is doing that. And in this game against the Panthers, putting up 30 points on the scoreboard where you're like, hey, we got 30 on the board first time since week 1, like you mentioned. Like, this is what you want to see against a Panthers team that isn't good. I want to see 30. And you gave me what I want to see now.
And you,
Down the stretch in the fourth quarter, wanted a little bit more, but
yeah, yeah.
30 is still good.
I mean, and to put up 30 officially as with your offense, right? In a way that week 1, you needed a pick 6 from your defense
Yep.
to get over 30. This is the first time that the offense put up 30, and they did it without all those weapons that I mentioned
Mhm.
earlier. Like the fact that you were able to, score early and often without your frontline kind of skill position players bodes really well for Jordan Love. And also, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the work of the offensive line because none of
Yes.
this works. None of this happens without them up front. I mean, Rasheed Walker is a different player these last 3 or 4 games. Across the line, though, I thought they held up really well against some, at times pretty inventive pressure schemes. I think Evero, the defensive coordinator for the Panthers, did a nice job in that fourth quarter, limiting what the Packers were able to do, which enabled their offense to get going.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think the offensive line, we're not going to hear a lot about it, but I think they allow Jordan Love to do everything he wanted to do. Like there was a few times where he had to sidestep pressure, but for the most part, it was a really clean game up front, both in the passing game and in the running game, allowing Aaron Jones to go to work. And it's just something you're probably not going to hear a lot about, but like you got to give it a nod because to your point, like earlier in the season,
It's rough.
you look at some of those interceptions, you look at some of the times Jordan was under pressure constantly, that's disappeared. Like that is a very clean unit up front, and they're playing their best ball right when they need to.
You know your offensive line is doing what they're supposed to do when no one's talking about your offensive line. Like
Right.
that's the way it
Yep.
goes. And I'm so glad that you brought that up because to your point, like we got to give Rasheed Walker some credit about how he's been playing. I believe this was the first game where he played 100% of the snaps at left
Yep.
tackle since they've been doing
Since
the
the platoon
rotations, which
started, yeah.
was
Yeah.
weird when they were like, why are we rotating offensive linemen? But somehow, some way, it worked. I guess the competition helped amongst the players, and they really picked up their game. And seeing what Rasheed Walker's been doing at left tackle, especially knowing the health situation with David Bakhtiari, it's one of those things where you're like, if this continues on and this pans out, like we got to steal in the
I mean,
draft at this point.
seriously, a 7th rounder? I mean, if
Yes,
you're ceiling, you gotta think his ceiling is probably like around ceiling. I'm talking like the best he's gonna ever be, possibly. If like he could become a Mark Tauscher at this point, like a
listen,
former 7th rounder who goes and becomes a stalwart starter for, a number of years. And look, I don't think if you had asked me that at the start of the year, I'd said, okay, let's slow down. But right now, given what he's doing week in and week out, that's not impossible, right? Like I still understand that's pretty far out there and
right.
probably I'm not going to say unattainable, but it's again, it's a big tall ceiling, but it's reachable. Like you look at how he's playing, like not impossible, I would say.
And that's good for the Green Bay Packers. And that's what it's all about. Like, if it's good for the Packers, I am super here for it. So,
Right.
for real though, I'm glad that you brought up the offensive line because I think that they deserve that credit because, as you mentioned, it hasn't been talked about too much since things have started to clean up with them, which again, sign of a good
Exactly.
offensive line. You don't hear them too much, but shout
Right.
out to the offensive line and what they've been doing because it was rough there for a little bit and they found a way to pull it together.
We'll flip it over now and talk about the defense because we have
Here
to.
we go.
We're tasked with doing so. Let's start it off with Joe Barry and getting fired. I know everyone in my Twitter mentions and my inbox is talking about firing Barry. And like we talked about at the top, if it was going to happen, it was going to happen after that Bucks game. It didn't happen. Matt said if he thought that would help, he would make the move. He doesn't think it'll help. And that's it. And I understand all the reasons people have for wanting it, all the reasons people want to give for, well, this is why they should do it. But none of us run the program. Matt LaFleur runs the program. It's his program. And if he thinks he's going to keep Joe Barry because of XYZ, then God bless him. Like, there's nothing I can do. I'm a Packers fan. All I can do is root for the team that's on the field. And this idea that I had people like talking about, well, oh, they don't have any available. They were going to have an availability with LaFleur, and then they canceled that availability. That's just Matt giving the guys days off at Christmas. Like, that's literally all that was. But people are like trying to work it into, oh, maybe this means he's going to fire the coordinator, and then they're going to have a press conference to announce it. People, slide back. Listen to the news. Joe Barry ain't going anywhere until the offseason. So just get behind it. I know it's tough because it's Joe Barry, and these defensive efforts give scant, reason to cheer or root or whatever. But this is it. This is your team. This is it.
This is it. This is a Packers team with a good good offense and a bad defense at this point, and a bad special teams. Like, that is who the Green Bay Packers are at this point in the season. Yet and still fighting for a wild card spot. With that being said, and to your point about Joe Barry, like, we joked about it last week going off the air of this episode of the series where we were like, hey, what's the season high for Bryce Young yards? Oh, he hasn't hit 250. Oh, well, he'll have like 300 and some tutties, and it'll be a good game for him. Another career game for another quarterback. Season high in yards for Bryce Young. One of the best passer ratings that he's ever had. And the craziest part is that Young finished the game with 312 yards. He got 177 of those yards in the fourth quarter. Both touchdowns were in the fourth quarter. The fourth quarter in particular is when things just all went to hell for the Packers defense. And you're just like, what are we doing? Like, the first half, you're like, hey, this looks all right. We're getting some pressure with some man coverage here. Okay, Joe Barry, you've heard something.
All right.
And then the second half, that lead came back, and Joe Barry was like, let me get back into my comfortable chair and my comfortable bag. And we're going to run the zone out here, and we're going to play off, and we're going to do what we do.
Wait. You know something I just thought? This is like workshopping live because I'm just thinking of it. But you know what I'm sick of? Like, we keep getting worse on defense as we bring back the guys who are supposed to be our frontline starters at the corner position, right? Can we go back to Valentine and Ballantyne? Because things were a lot better when they were out there manning those corners, whatever they're being asked to do, over Jair and Stokes. I hate to say it because I love Jair. I'm rooting for Stokes. But the more we bring back these quote-unquote frontline starters, the worse this defense looks. Like, Valentine and Ballantyne, for all of their, shortcomings, maybe they were scheme specific. Maybe they were sound in what they were being asked to do, even though, yes, they get beat sometimes. Yes, they're a little overmatched athletically, what have you. Man, watching Jair and Stokes be giving up these interceptions, or not interceptions, these completions and chunks of yardage, play after play after play. I'm like, wait a second. The whole reason they're there is because it doesn't happen. That's frustrating to me. That's the frustration. Like, you're supposed to be getting better when you add these guys to the mix, but you're noticeably worse.
It was one of those things where I was confused. Right. And we've talked about it before. Another thing with the Packers defense is just like the tackling. Like you mentioned, Ja, and I think about that I think it was the first Panthers touchdown when the receiver took like the jet sweep around and they had no edge containment. And I was like, oh, Ja is hustling to get back into this play. And then he doesn't tackle. He just kind of bumps the guy into the end zone. And I'm like, like all that effort to get back into the play.
To give him a chicken wing.
Yeah,
just to give him a little love shove.
Let me give you a couple extra yards here to get you into the end zone. Like, that's disappointing. And even the roughing the passer penalty that shouldn't have been a roughing the passer penalty on the Packers, but it probably should have been defensive pass interference on Ja in the same play. So it's like, I guess the Packers kind of like, I don't say lucked out, but it was like if
Got away with one. They got away
yeah,
with
so
one.
you're like, okay,
Definitely.
all right. Like it wasn't a good performance. And I was thinking, is this just because it's Josh's first game in some time? Same with Eric Stokes, where it's like you haven't played football in so long. Are you just getting back into football shape, getting the game reps? Are you still figuring it out? But if you're a team looking to make the playoffs on a playoff push, do you need to be putting guys out there at the moment who are figuring things out? It's an interesting, like, hey, what are we doing with the snap counts? Do we want to see more Valentine and Valentine? What do you want to do here with this defense at this point?
Yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, I think they're gonna ride with the guy they spent the 2 guys they spent first round picks on, the guy you paid a ton of money to and Jair, you know. I don't think there's gonna be a reversal of course. It's just interesting to me that, like, as they get these guys back, they have looked worse. You know, don't have to go much further than, say, the game against the Chiefs or the game against the Lions, where, you know, Stokes and Ja are nowhere to be found, and this defense is playing a hell of a lot better. I will say we're talking a lot about how guys are playing poorly. One guy I do want to shout out is Isaiah McDuffie. That's a backup linebacker who got another opportunity, and he's playing better than both guys in front of him. And I do think Quay is certainly battling. Like we know, Devondre had real issues a couple weeks ago and then sat down this week. McDuffie just gives you a burst that is not there with those other 2 guys, and that doesn't mean I think he should be a full-time starter. But right now, he's giving you probably higher end play than either guy playing in front of him. And I would be surprised if he's not there for the rest of the season in front of Dre, given what he's
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, he's earned more playing time at this point, like, his performance, what he's put on tape has been better than what we've seen from other guys at that inside linebacker position. So, like, yes, I would look to actually see Quay with McDuffie out there to end this. Like, that's the duo I would run with, even
I
when
agree.
Dre gets better, like, continue healing your body up, Dre, and it's no, like, I'm
Yeah.
not saying, like, he doesn't have any talent and this and that, but based on what we've seen just on tape, the performance that we've gotten from McDuffie has been better. So I think the best pairing that you can run with at this point is Quay with McDuffie. And Quay, we know he's been battling through his injuries as well. There are some people like the perception on Quay is really interesting as well, like where
Yes.
people place him.
Agreed. Yeah.
To me, he's still just kind of like a young backer who's still figuring things out. His speed and ability to close is something that I love to see from a linebacker. Where you're like, he can fly and get into the play. He's over 100 tackles again this season, like he was last year. Like Quay is an interesting. I don't think he's necessarily as great as some people might say, and I don't think he's as bad either. I think he's a guy
Yeah.
that's still just kind of figuring things out, but he's playing fast while he's figuring it out.
He's a decent tackler too. Like he's not a great tackler.
He looks great on this defense.
I wouldn't call anybody on the Green Bay Packers a great tackler, but he's a decent tackler and he's a willing tackler, which again in Green Bay is a rare thing. Um, but yeah, I'm with you. I think there's an expectation, I guess, at this point where I almost expect these guys to miss tackles. Like I'm pleasantly surprised when a tackle gets made, and Quay more often than not does get his guy on the ground, though it may be 3 or 4 yards past where he hits him. But he is a tackler. I will give him that. I just want. Are you ready for this big showdown on Sunday night, which has
Ooh,
stayed in some no flex, it's keeping it Sunday night, New Year's Eve in Minnesota. Jordan Love versus Nick Mullins. I mean, just as we all predicted. I mean, look, the Vikings, say what you want. I know they're coming off a tough loss to the Lions, but man, this defense gave the Packers offense all sorts of trouble in Lambeau Field. It's
mhm.
only going to get tougher there in Minnesota. That unit, you know, say what you want about the offense, the revolving door at quarterback. I know they're banged up offensively. I think the rook Addison got hurt. Hawkinson sounds like he's going to be out.
I think he's missing, yeah.
But you know, this is how they've had to play. They've had to play really good defense and try to cobble together on offense. This is gonna be a tough one for the Packers if they can't get some of these weapons back on the Packers offense. You know, if you get Watson back, I think that really obviously lessens the steepness, as it were, of the task. But this is gonna be a challenge, man. This Vikings defense is gonna bring pressure from everywhere, and Jordan Love and those guys up front are gonna have a tough time sorting it out, I think.
Yeah, they gotta be ready. They gotta be ready. Luckily, over the last few weeks, they've been able to play a lot of blitz-heavy defenses and seen a lot of different schemes thrown at them, and they've been able to pick that up pretty well. But to your point about just how well that Vikings defense is playing, you gotta hope. we get some of these other skill position players back. Like, yeah, against the Panthers, you're still able to put up 30 and do what you do without having Watson and Reed and losing Wicks. Yeah, you can do that. But against this Vikings defense, you're going to need a little bit more juice there. So
Yeah.
definitely hoping for some health there. And you can't even underrate the Vikings offense with as bad as the Packers defense has been, especially
There it is, right?
if
I mean,
Justin Jefferson is out there. Like,
Hawkinson's down. Does it matter? You could probably
Jefferson's
throw in a
still there.
third. Jefferson's still there. You could probably throw in a third string tight end, and that guy will go off for 100. I mean, I look. All I know is I have to gird myself for that stupid fucking horn. Like, that first down. Shut up! It's the worst. It's the worst.
No, it
It's the
truly is.
absolute worst.
My husband went to school at the University of Minnesota, and we went back to Minnesota. We toured the new stadium, everything with all our Packers gear on. They're just like,
there you go.
we're walking through, we're doing our thing.
Loud and proud. Love it.
Minnesota games have an extra juice. Since I married my husband, I realized how much Minnesota really does not like the Green Bay Packers because here, like especially in Milwaukee, we don't think about the Vikings too much. We think about the Bears. Like it's just the way that it goes. Yep. The most we thought about the Vikings was when Brett Favre was their quarterback, and that was just out of spite because it felt like your ex was doing something purposely to spite
Spiteful.
you.
Yeah,
and you're paying attention. But now these Minnesota games, I'm like, yeah, I'm here for it because I've been to Minnesota more often now. I get it. I understand it. I'm here for it. And it's a big game because pretty much if you lose, whoever loses, Packers or Vikings, that pretty much eliminates any
shuts the door on the playoffs.
So it's a big game, a New Year's Eve game. I might have to have an at-home New Year's Eve party, have some people over for that one. That might be kind of fun.
There you go. Well, you should have the Cheesehead TV watch party on so you can watch me just lose my mind when some fourth string quarterback takes advantage of Joe Barry because we all know that's going to happen. I can't wait.
Aaron, before we wrap here, I have to say, I had my mom spend the Christmas weekend with me, and she was like, "You have any beers?" And I said, "I have some Cheesehead TV. I got some Carry the G in the fridge." I gave her one first. She goes, "Wait, the podcast has a beer?" And I was like, Cheesehead TV has a beer. And she's like, "Oh my goodness." And then she's drinking and she's like, "This is one of the best beers I've had." So
there you go. There you go.
I Carry the G beer. Come you some.
On, Camille's mom. That's what I'm talking about. What a plug. I love it. I love it. Speaking of plugs, tell people where they can find you on the internet. Talking all the talk.
You can catch me on the Technical Foul podcast, TECKNICAL. That's a once a week podcast, about an hour 30 or so, where we cover the biggest stories from the NFL, NBA, and the world of pro wrestling. We record live every Tuesday, release the episode on Wednesday. But if you want to be part of the show, join us on our YouTube page every Tuesday around 7 p.m. Central Time. Be part of the show. You can also catch me Monday through Friday on Locked on Bucks, covering all things Milwaukee Bucks basketball.
Absolutely love it. We're not gonna talk about my Bucks and Christmas. We're not gonna talk about it. I don't, especially the Knicks. Of all the fucking teams, the Knicks, really. You know where I live, Camille. I don't like it. I don't.
All you got to say, Aaron, is hey, we had beat the Knicks 9 times in a row. It was bound. They were bound to get one.
They were due.
They were bound to get one.
No doubt about it. All right, Camille. We'll talk to you next week after a big Packers victory. Hopefully, have a great day.
Go Pack, go.